Welcome to the show, Chris Graham, Scott German. We're going to talk some UVA and ACC sports. And Scott, maybe we should start talking basketball. Virginia's got the midweek off. Somebody has to either have the midweek or weekend off, as the accumulation of games. There's 15 teams in the ACC. You can't match everybody up that way. So it's Virginia's turn, get some time off, which means we can relax a little bit. No worries about the midweek, and Virginia's looking ahead to Boston College on Saturday. So, Scott, some big stuff happened on Monday and Tuesday this week in the ACC that certainly has impact. We're getting towards the midway point of the ACC season. Duke losing Monday night, North Carolina winning last night. Boy, it's been an eventful couple of days with some more games tonight.
Yeah, we talked off the hour about some of the goings-ons in the conference. And first of all, who would have ever thought Virginia Tech has 2 wins, 7 losses, and their 2 wins are against Duke and North Carolina. Yeah. That doesn't make doesn't register, but it is what it is. The Hokies, hopefully they can build on that. And, or if you're a Hokie fan, hopefully you can build on that. And they play Syracuse Saturday. If Syracuse is over that assault that happened on them last night in the final minute in the up in the formerly the Carrier Dome, then that's going to be a tough game for the Hokies. But we talked about Monday night, the tangible effects of not having Coach K on the sideline was clearly evident in the last couple of minutes of the Duke Virginia Tech game. And then last night, Carolina is still Carolina because there were some questionable calls that went against Syracuse that literally handed the game over to UNC. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Let's start with the Duke Tech game. Tech, you mentioned. I mean, I think that's a great way to point it out. They're 2-7. They're 2 wins over Carolina and Duke. Folks down in Greensboro, Charlotte, wherever their offices are now. Not happy about that as far as that goes. But yeah, the Hokies, I mean, they've been playing good basketball. We saw them in JPJ last week. They're not a bad team. They just had an injury, some issues there, lack of depth. Anyway, so all right, so yeah, there was a flop call fouled on Duke. You had some interesting observation on that flop call that was called on Duke. That's right where it stood out to you the most, that Coach K is no longer on the sidelines and John Shire is.
Yeah, I said to you, if that game is played with Mike Krzyzewski standing on the sideline for 39 minutes, letting the officials know every single play that didn't go his way, there is no one that can convince me that the officials on the floor calls that a flop. Because that official likes officiating in the ACC a whole lot better than he likes officiating at the YMCA on Saturday mornings. So he's not going to make that call. You can argue with me. I don't think you will, but you can argue with me until the end of time. That call is not made with Coach K standing on the sideline. You just don't make it. No official is going to make that call.
Well, then how about so in the last, I think it was 13 seconds left when MJ Collins, freshman, makes the go-ahead basket, as it turns out. It was a tie game, 75-75. He makes the basket, puts the Hokies up 77-75. And innocent celebration, he turns around, he's throwing his fist in the air, and it just happens that Kyle Filipowski, the star freshman for one of the star freshmen, but he is the star of the star freshman for Duke, happens to be standing right there, and the punch hits him in the throat. I mean, you couldn't have done it better if you were trying. And the poor kid, Filipowski goes to the huddle. He's barfing in the huddle, and the officials go to the replay, and there's no flagrant call there. I mean, yeah, it's probably not a flagrant. He didn't mean to hit him, but then he did. He, whether he meant to hit him or not, he punched him in the throat. And so I will go with what you had to say there, Scott. I mean, if Coach K's on the sidelines, that's a flagrant foul.
Oh, absolutely. Again, those referees get paid very well to officiate in the ACC, considerably more than what they would make if they call that with Coach K on the sidelines, officiating YMCA games on Saturday, because that's where they would be headed.
Well, that takes us
No,
to
it wasn't intentional, but
it wasn't intentional. No.
It's still a flagrant foul, just like the flop last night was not. I mean, he may have been hit. It may have. I think he did. I think there was some contact there, which if you, I was listening to one of the newscasts afterwards, and supposedly the intent of that new rule is if there is contact, even the slightest contact, you don't make that call. Is that correct?
Well, I think we're talking about, so you're talking about now the end of the Syracuse
UNC
game.
Yeah.
We got to talk about, because in the context of the no call on flagrant on what turned into being a punch in the throat at the end of the Syracuse UNC game. So Syracuse was up 68-66. And then there was a foul on a dunk attempt. Carolina made one free throw. They missed a second one. The Syracuse kid tries to save it in bounds under the basket. Cardinal rule, you don't do that. The free throw shooter, Nance, actually picked it up, made a little layup, put them ahead. So then Syracuse calls timeout, drives down the floor, and the young freshman whose name I don't have right in front of me here, the freshman is driving to the basket. It's probably a charge. I think it could go 50-50 on whether that's a charge or a block. But not only was a charge called, which gives possession to North Carolina, then if you're Syracuse, you try to steal in the backcourt. If not, you foul. You're still in the game even if he makes both free throws. There was actually a review, and the officials decided, because the young man inadvertently hit the Carolina defender with his elbow in the head, that not only was it a charge, but it was a flagrant 2. And they got 2 free throws in the ball back in bounds. So Monday night, Virginia Tech kid, whether he meant to or not, punched a guy in the neck, no foul, no flagrant foul. Set Tuesday night, Syracuse kid, while trying to make a basketball play, inadvertently hits the Carolina defender with an elbow. What could have been a 50-50 charge block turns into a charge and a flagrant foul, and pretty much the game's over.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I kind of guess it just means the more things change, the more things stay the same.
Because Jim Boeheim's on the sidelines there. Now, he looked like, I won't say it as colorfully as I did when we were talking on the phone, but he looked like his lunch got stolen, his dog got run over when the game was over. He wasn't mad. He wasn't fired up. He wasn't yelling at officials. He looked like a guy that just kind of thought, why did we move to the ACC all those years ago?
Yeah, I think it's time for Jim at 7:00 on weeknights to be sitting in front of the TV watching Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
He's not intimidating anyone on the sidelines nowadays. But it kept the foul last night against Carolina. Calling that a flagrant, I was screaming at the TV. That's ridiculous. Why are you having this unnecessary interruption, delay in the game, because it's not a flagrant foul? And lo and behold, they come back and call it a flagrant foul. That essentially ends that game.
Well, then the kid only made 1 or 2 free throws. The next play was an inbound in the backcourt. So North Carolina's trying to throw the ball in bounds. Now, Syracuse had been giving North Carolina trouble with its full court press. Virginia fans know this. Virginia fans are used to Syracuse full court pressing and giving trouble. They do a great job with it. The inbounds pass, there's a foul called on the Syracuse kid. The replay showed it clear, even live, but the replay showed it clearly. Syracuse kid was flung to the floor, and he was called for a foul. His 5th foul knocked him out of the game. So, heaping insult upon injury is what that is.
Yeah, definitely. It's I don't believe in the conspiracy theory, but protecting the shield is still very much alive in the ACC.
You don't believe in a conspiracy theory, except that we do.
Except we're promoting that for the first 7 or 8 minutes of this podcast. So other than that, we don't believe in it, right?
That's right.
So to move off of that a little bit, I was reading a story today, and it made me think. I was reading a little bit about Coach Bennett addressing the diminished role, or I won't say role, but I mean, that's essentially what it is. The diminished minutes for Shedrick and Cafaro, and basically telling them, stay focused, stay encouraged. To me, again, that's just lends to the brilliance of Tony Bennett, because if you look at, I know we've gone small lineup the last 4 or 5 games, maybe during the whole 5-game winning streak, where
4 of the 5 games.
4 of the 5 games. But if you look at some of the games coming up, especially the game down in Chapel Hill, I don't see that small lineup being able to handle Baycott and Nance. I think that Cedric and Cafaro are going to still have roles to fill. And I think that that's the genius of Tony Bennett, is he knows, he understands that small lineup's not going to work every time out.
I'm going to disagree with you. I think the small lineup is here to stay. I think if there were 2 games recently where it could have gone away, really the second game of the streak here, well, the third game of the 5-game winning streak, second game of the streak of 4 of small ball, Florida State plays a big lineup. He sent Vanderplas out there in the lineup, starting lineup for Virginia, play a lot of minutes that day. Wake Forest, they're starting center 7'1", backup 7 feet. They're starting power forward 6'10", backup is 6'10". So big guys. I mean, 7 foot 6'10" guys, and he still went with Vanderplas, Gardner, and Dunn. If you go away, I think the reason you don't go away from it is it's working on both ends. Offensively, obviously it's working. Vanderplas, at the 5 position, stretches the floor. He doesn't need the ball in the post. He doesn't need to hang around the post to do things, and that opens up the driving lanes for the 3 guards, Beekman, Clark, and Franklin, and they've been taking advantage of that. Shedrick needs to be in the post. And if he's standing on a 3-point line, even if he's out there as a decoy, his defender is still going to be in the post. So he's not dragging his defender out, whereas Vanderplas drags his defender out with him. I think if anything changes, it's that Ryan Dunn starts ahead of Jaden Gardner. The fact that Virginia played well against Wake Forest down there against a big lineup. In fact, I mean, the first game of the streak was against North Carolina, of the small ball streak. I know it wasn't Baycott, but they had that Jalen Williams is going to be Baycott next year, and he had 12 points, 5 of 7 in the first half, shooting against Caden Shedrick. Second half against Vanderplas, who Vanderplas gives 3 inches up to him. Vanderplas held him to 1 point on 0 of 4 shooting. Vanderplas is a better defender than Shedrick. There's no doubt about that. And the offense. Now, so Scott, I did an analysis yesterday. There's a website called evanmaya.com. That among the subscription sites that I access, where you can look at lineup analysis. You can actually, look at how 5-man lineups do offensive efficiency wise, defensive efficiency wise. Virginia's best 2 lineups are with Vanderplas at center. Their second best lineup the first best lineup is Vanderplas and Dunn together on the floor. Second best lineup is the 4-guard lineup with Vanderplas at center. I think Shedrick's minutes, Shedrick and Cafaro are going to get minutes. If Vanderplas gets into serious foul trouble in a game, they're in there. But when they're in there, Virginia's not going to be as good.
Who is this Cafaro you speak of?
Well, remember, we learned when was the Pitt game? I think it was. We learned that we'd been saying his name wrong for 4.5 years. And he had been letting us say it wrong for 4.5 years. Yeah.
So is every broadcast announcer and every PA announcer and every opposition's home floor. So
the PA announcer at Virginia hasn't had to say his name much. He did have a basket. He had a basket down at Wake. So the Wake PA announcer probably had to say his name. He's just not getting minutes. He has 3 DNPs in the last 6 games. But yeah, they have to get it right. No, that's one of those things. And really, since the pronunciation went to Cafaro, he hasn't been the same. So I'm thinking he needs to go back, honestly.
Yeah, I believe he does. So what you're saying essentially is, because you're the analytics guy, and I'm looking at things just from the eye test, is that you're saying that we probably stick with that small lineup even against a big team like Carolina, because we can't slow Baycott down more in the paint than having Shedrick out on the perimeter can slow down our offense.
Well, actually, too, Shedrick is not a good one-on-one ball defender. When I look at when I do the deep dive analytics on the Synergy Sports website, this number is not bad, to say the least. He allows opponents to shoot 43% from the floor. You'll be floored when you hear the number I tell you that Vanderplas allows his guy to shoot from the floor 22%. I don't know if you remember, Scott, after the Carolina game, one of the reporters asked Vanderplas to talk about his strategy guarding Jalen Williams after Williams had that big first half against Shedrick. He said his strategy was he knew he was going to get the ball in the post. His job was to make it so that he didn't get set up on the block, basically right there at the side of the lane, that he caught the ball as far away from the block as possible, so that whenever he started his move, there might be help from either a guard or a post-to-post double, or if nothing else, he's just got a few more feet to work before he gets to the rim. And what that said to me when I heard that, read that, thought about that, Vanderplas knows how to play post defense. Caden Shedrick gets a lot of blocked shots, and he gets, and so we tend as media people, if guys who get steals, guys who get blocked shots, those are counting numbers. Those guys must be good defenders. Shedrick gets his block shots because he doesn't block the guy he's guarding. He doesn't block Baycott if he's, going one-on-one.
He blocks
Baycott.
mistakes.
He blocks mistakes. If a guy gets past a guard, he goes backside and blocks that shot. So Vanderplas doesn't block shots. He doesn't need to block shots. He keeps his guy out of getting good shots. So he's a better defender in the post. He's certainly a better offensive option. That's why I think that Ryan Dunn starts at the 4. If I'm coach, and I think Bennett's going to do this eventually, Coach Bennett's going to do this eventually, that whether it's Boston College or sometime soon, Ryan Dunn, similarly to Vanderplas, Dunn can knock down the 3. He's not Vanderplas in terms of productivity quite yet, but he can knock down the 3. As a result, if he's standing out there wide open, his defender's not hanging out in a lane like he would be with Shedrick. His defender's got to go out there and respect his ability to make the 3. And then defensively, he's head and shoulders above Gardner defensively. So I think sooner rather than later, Dunn's starting. So that's, to me, the only change. I don't think you go back to the big lineup. I think that Shedrick and Cafaro are there as basically you got your 7-man rotation. You got your 5 starters. You got McNeely off the bench. You got Dunn off the bench. And then Shedrick and Cafaro are there if one of the bigs or both of the bigs get in foul trouble.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I would think that I would agree that Tony changes that lineup for one game. First of all, that game's not just right around the corner; it's a while down the road yet. The other thing that you have to be concerned with is that Shedrick and Poppy didn't exactly control Baycott last year in either game.
The game down in Chapel Hill, Baycott had 29 points and 21 rebounds, and combined, Shedrick and Cafaro had 2 points and 2 rebounds.
Yeah, so
you could put me and you out there against him, and at least it'd be something different.
Yeah, they might feel sorry for us.
Yeah, we could take a couple of charges. He would elbow us in the face and get a flagrant foul just because we're a foot shorter.
Yeah. Vanderplas probably going to play a lot. I wonder about fouling in the paint if he's actually down in the paint a lot.
Well, he got a foul early in the game against Wake Forest, and so Tony did with him what he does with anybody who gets a foul early. He took him out, but Dunn came in for him. Then when Dunn needed to be replaced just for minutes, standpoint to get some rest, Cafaro came in. Interestingly enough, he came in before Shedrick did. So no, he's still going to play it that way. That's why I say foul trouble. If foul trouble becomes an issue, that's why he's telling Shedrick and Cafaro to be ready, not because they're going to go start or and play 30 minutes. It's to, hey, we're going to, just like Tane Murray needs to be ready. If there's if there's an in-game injury, or we had 4 fouls with both of our point guards at Wake Forest. Murray didn't get in the game there, but I mean, just in case there's something, Murray is the next guard off the bench, and he's not going to get a lot of playing time. But be ready, because you might get your name called.
Yeah, and that seemed to be kind of Tony's agenda, to make sure that these guys that were getting some reduced time stayed focused, because it could happen anytime, that they're all of a sudden out there counting upon for 15 or 20 minutes again.
Think of Evan Nolte back, what was that, 2015? The team that it was undefeated for a long time, ended up, losing in the second round of the tournament, NCAA tournament, but was like 19-0. I think they were 28-2 at the end of the regular season. Anyway, Justin got hurt in like the 20th or 21st game, and they had to play with. So Evan Nolte went from not playing at all to starting at the 4, and was actually playing pretty well. I mean, so yeah, Tony's good at finding guys. Darion Atkins he redshirted a year, didn't play for 3 years, and then he comes in and starts the 4th year and played great. So guys, yeah, in Tony's system, I'm trying to think. There was another example of that. Was it Marco Anthony that had to come in a game or two, and that might have even been around the same time as Justin Anderson getting hurt. I remember Anthony came in after not playing even garbage minutes, and then had a double-digit game against Louisville in one game. Be ready. That's the message from Tony, because if I call on you, I need you to be as good as the guys I'm replacing that you're replacing.
So, what do you think? What do you think is going to have to happen for Jaden Gardner to get on track, or can he?
I mean, his numbers are interesting when you look at him. Okay, last year he played 32.7 minutes a game. This year he's playing 23.4, so he's playing a lot less. He's still averaging 10 points a game, 10.1 points per game. Last year in 32 minutes, he averaged 15.2. So from a points per minute standpoint, he's not far off. He's actually shooting better from the floor than he did last year. He's shooting 51.4 right now from the floor. He shot 50.1 last year. He's in the game less, not because he's not effective offensively. I think it's because Dunn is better defensively. And if you've got Vanderplas in at center, you've got offense taken care of. I don't know what he can. I think Gardner. If it was me again, and I'm kind of projecting myself on Tony and thinking Tony and his staff. He's got people on his staff who look at these numbers just like I do, and they look at it a lot better than I do. I'm just kind of glimpsing when they're studying these kind of things. If I do move, so if I've got my lineup as being Beekman and Clark at point guard, basically 2 point guards, Franklin as the third guard. If I've got Dunn as my starting power forward, and then Vanderplas as my starting center, and then I go with Gardner as my first big off the bench, and then I go with McNeely as my first guard and really only guard off the bench in ideal situations. Think about what that lineup is. The two guys you're bringing in the game off the bench, Gardner and McNeely, are offensive-minded guys. They're guys who can, Gardner. So McNeely obviously with his 3-point ability, Gardner with his mid-range ability. I think in bunches that can be tough. I mean, and Gardner going against a second unit instead of against a first unit. I mean, we see guys in the NBA who make a living and make millions of dollars as leading the set. Malcolm Brogdon right now with the Boston Celtics, you making a lot of money, achieving at a high level against the second unit guys, and taking advantage of the fact that you should be a starter, but you can score at a level against the guys who can't guard you because they're second unit guys. So I think Gardner can be very effective in that role for 18, 20, 22 minutes a game. And if you give Dunn 30 minutes a game like he's been getting lately defensively, you're a better team overall. So that's why I think that could be. And I think so. He's effective already. I don't think he needs to get off the schneid. I think he's doing fine. It's just that he's not the better option, maybe because overall the game that Dunn plays is a better overall game.
Yeah, you're right that his numbers aren't that terribly different than last year. And he was very productive against Virginia Tech.
Yes, he was. 5 of 6 for 12 points. Yeah.
I just don't see him attacking the basket as much. And I don't know if that's something he can do, but it just seems like when he attacks the basket, he either draws a foul. He goes to the foul line a lot. He's got a lot of moves. He handles the ball well. Maybe he's just tightened up a bit because he's got more options out there, around him.
When I look at the sportsreference.com, basketballreference.com can give you per 40 minutes numbers. So his per 40 minutes numbers last year, 18.8 points, 7.8 rebounds per game. his per 40 minutes this year, 17.2 points, 8.0 rebounds per game. He's pretty much right there.
Yeah. It
It's
just probably
just
it probably seems a little less because there's more firepower around him.
there's more guys. That's right. I mean, we're seeing, for example, along those same lines, we're seeing the most effective, most efficient Kihei Clark that we've seen in his 5 years, including his first year when we won a national championship. He's averaging career best in points. He's just under his career best in assists, but he's also his assist to turnover ratio is by far his best, almost 3-1 there. He's shooting career best from the floor, from 2-point range, from 3-point range. We are seeing the absolute best out of Kihei Clark, and it's again because like last year, you had basically 5 guys who could produce for you, maybe 4 guys who could produce for you, and Gardner and Clark were 2 of those guys. Now there's so many guys who can do it out there that you don't need so much from any individual one guy. As a result, they can be more effective, more efficient, and we're seeing that out of Gardner in fewer minutes. Now Clark's playing the same amount of minutes, but he's not having to shoot the ball as much, and he's just more effective. So that's the influx of talent has helped both those guys be more efficient.
And it's just going to get more every next year. There's a lot of talent coming in.
Yeah, I mean, we're hearing that the transfer point guard, the Georgetown kid, that is on now. He would be eligible to play now because he didn't enroll at Georgetown in the fall. He has enrolled. He's already in classes at Virginia here in the spring semester. But he's for obvious reasons chose to redshirt because there'd be no playing time for him if he was. You don't want to waste a year of eligibility on not playing much. But what we hear is that through the grapevine is that he is, so everybody's got what Virginia calls their scout team, the green team, and that his play on the green team as the point guard against Reese Beekman and Kihei Clark has been very noteworthy, and to a point where it's actually helping the team out because it's really raised the level of play for that green team.
Yeah, and look at it's not a coincidence. We're on a 5-game win streak. When did he join the team?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And we know that Tony Bennett practices, they get after it. If they don't play. So from our, I don't like to call it through the grapevine. I like to refer to it as our intel, is that he has elevated the scout team, the green team, the greenies, to a point where when the actual game comes around, it's often easier for Beekman and for Franklin.
I mean, he was the Big East tournament MVP just 18 months ago. So he's a high level. He's going to be a high level player at Virginia. He already is, obviously. Scott, we were talking about this. It reminded me of Malcolm Brogdon got injured at the end of his first year at UVA. He had to sit out his second year. He got better as that year went on, and Tony just made the decision, hey, we're not going to waste a whole year of you to play a few games. We're going to redshirt you. So, and then a guy named Anthony Gill also had to redshirt that year. He transferred in, and back then transfers didn't get to play right away. Those two guys led the green team. I remember Joe Harris was first team All-ACC that year, and I remember when we were interviewing him about being named first team All-ACC, he said, I'm not even the best player on this team. Those two guys are the other 2 best players on this team. They're all 3 in the NBA, of course, now, but that stood out. I mean, yeah, practice. We don't think about that. Fans, Scott, do you think about? We don't think about practice. We don't practice. Allen Iverson practice, but that's where you get better. And that guy is so interesting. The fact that he transferred in when he did is helping make this team better.
Well, and we know under Coach Bennett, practice is where you earn playing time.
That's right.
Simple as that.
He didn't roll the ball out there.
So before we change subjects, because I know we're a little condensed on time here, the 2 questions about Dante Harris comes to mind. One, tongue in cheek, is why in the world would someone want to leave that illustrious program like Georgetown?
Hey, they just beat DePaul.
So I'll ask that question again. Why would anyone want to leave Georgetown? And
they snapped their 29-game Big East losing streak beating DePaul the other
How
day.
does Patrick Ewing survive a 29-game losing streak? conference losing streak.
I can't imagine him surviving this season. And I don't know how he got to this season, much less he had that one run which Dante Harris led. They were under 500 going into the Big East tournament. They won the Big East tournament. They won 4 games to win the Big East tournament, and that saved his job that year. But I think they were 6-24 last year, and 6-24 would be leaping ahead of their pace right now for this year. Georgetown, it's hard. Scott, you were at the Washington Wizards game the other night. I watched the game on TV just so I could converse with you about it. And during the game broadcast, they had John Thompson III on, and he didn't talk about Georgetown at all. But I was thinking the whole time, they fired John Thompson III to get to Patrick Ewing. John Thompson III took them to a Final Four. He had a couple of subpar seasons at the end of his run there. Nothing like what Patrick Ewing's doing, and they got rid of him real quick. They've given Patrick Ewing a lot of rope. I don't get it myself.
I don't either. And from having been at a Wizards game recently, talking to one of the staff, one of the ushers about that, Georgetown doesn't even play all their home games in the Capital One Center now. They often play on campus.
Yeah.
And they have a hard time filling a 3,500 seat arena. So can you imagine what a game would look like in the Capital One, 23,000 seats, 24,000 seats? It would just be an embarrassment, man. That's probably one of the most catastrophic fall offs in college basketball.
Oh, because they were so good in the 80s. I mean, and really all the way through. Again, John Thompson III had a good run there.
I can't think of anyone that even comes close to that. Could you?
No, because I mean, you think about the UCLA's of the world. UCLA is at least passable. I mean, they're very good some years. They're even when they're bad, they're not terrible. They're near the NCAA tournament. I can't think of. I really can't think of anybody. Houston with the Fly Slime Lama years, they went through a stretch where they weren't good. They're very good now, obviously. So no, Georgetown's fall. And I don't know where you go from here. I don't know how you rebuild that.
I don't know if you do, because the Big East that they play in now is nothing like the Big East with Syracuse and Pittsburgh and Villanova. Those teams are gone. So, Georgetown is probably never going to reach that level of play again. So unfortunately, now we've had a half an hour or more of talking about something very pleasant. Now we have to shift gears and talk about something that's not pleasant.
Yeah.
And that's Virginia football. And Chris, I can't tell you how disappointed I was earlier this week when I learned about Marcus Hagan's leaving, because now it's personal, because you and I both have known Marcus for a long time. And there's no one that represents UVA football better than on this current staff than Marcus Hagan. Now you can say Chris Slade, but Chris is a newcomer. Marcus is a veteran of assistant coaches. There's some that say maybe Chris is just doing this as something to do. Marcus was on a career path in this, and to walk away, we know why he's doing it, and strategically it makes great sense, but it still hurts to see him leave Virginia football.
Yeah, and I've been getting some flack from some people over the column I wrote about this, explaining exactly why he's leaving. I mean, I know, he's not going to tell anyone on the record, I'm leaving because I want to get this. I mean, my language I used was get the stink off of him.
Well, I mean, that's true. That's exactly true.
He's never going to admit to that to a media person, but it's why he's leaving. I mean, some people wrote, "Oh, he's leaving because, what happened in November, and two of his guys were there." That would be more reason to stay, if anything else. He's a UVA alum. He's got an undergrad degree, a graduate degree. He's been on the staff for 12 years. He's married to a former UVA, I think, volleyball player, right? Right. Everything about the man is UVA. If anything, what happened in November would keep him there, to be part of the healing process. But, another side of this is exactly how I explained it in the column, Scott. And we talked about it before I wrote the column, that he is going to be a head coach someday. a Power 5 head coach. And he's not going to be a FCS head coach. He's going to be a Power 5 head coach someday. That young man, if you've talked with him for a minute, if you've talked with him for an hour, you know he is going to be. He is that organized. He's got lots. He's there. He's got everything about head coach written all over him. But if he stays at Virginia, and things happen the way they're going to happen the next couple of years at Virginia, he's not going to be a head coach anytime soon after that. Because if you're part of a staff that, you know, gets run out of town, you don't get to be the head coach. I mean, I think him moving to Penn State, where he'll get to go and work under a very successful head coach, James Franklin, who had success at Vanderbilt, has had great success at Penn State, will give it'll give Marcus a chance to work under, you know, someone new outside of Virginia, you know, because he's been under Mike London, he's been under Bronco Mendenhall, and then 1 year of Tony Elliott, and also, you know, the 2 or 3 years or however long he's gone, it'll just reinforce that we need to make a change and we need to go back in the direction of someone like a Marcus Hagans. And I think he's put himself in position to be the next head coach of Virginia in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's strategically, it was the right decision because, as you just said, if he stays with this program and this program continues in the direction that we think it is, we hope it's not, but
it is.
But it is. I think I sent you an email that I projected that by the time Coach Elliott gets handed his walking papers, which we speculate would be sometime in October of 2024, correct?
Yeah, 2020, yeah.
His career record at Virginia is going to be somewhere around 6-24, which means between the start of next season and 8 or so games into the 2024 season, he's going to be 3-17.
Yeah.
And that's not good. And Marcus has got to know those numbers as well as we do, probably better.
I'm trying to think where the 3 wins come from.
I was just getting ready to say the 3 wins might be a stretch.
It might be a stretch. Unfortunately, I hate to laugh about it, but yeah.
We're in for a lot of football, a lot of bad football. And Marcus knew it. Marcus is an extremely intelligent young man. And he knows from a career standpoint, he would be committing suicide hanging on with this program.
And that's why a guy who is as orange and blue literally as anyone alive or dead, he probably challenges Thomas Jefferson in that respect. I mean, again, 2 degrees himself. His wife has a degree. He played for 4 years. He was a wide receiver, punt returner, quarterback. He's been a coach for 12 years under 3 different regimes. For him to leave is a sign. This isn't good news for anyone. I mean, if there were people trying to comment to me, send me emails, trying to spin this as something positive for Virginia football going forward, there's nothing positive for Virginia football going forward because it's a sign. It's a guy who has everything invested in Virginia football saying, I can't be, there's no path to success by me staying here.
I'm curious to learn what would be the thought process of why this would not be detrimental to UVA football. How could this be? Who's trying to spin that as a positive? And how?
Yeah, because for Penn State to take him on as their wide receivers coach and offensive recruiting coordinator is a sign that a program that competes every year for Big Ten and national championships says he is one of the best wide receiver coaches in college football. We've already known that. We knew that for years at Virginia. And now Penn State is saying, we think he's one of the best wide receiver coaches in college football. I mean, I threw it out to you, Scott. I think when we were chatting, I didn't write this in the column that I wrote, but to me, what could have been an interesting choice for him is if Tony Elliott had said, because I mean, we talked about this at length. We've both written about this, that we thought going into the end of the season that Des Kitchings would no longer be the offensive coordinator after his disastrous season as offensive coordinator. He still is. So that's a surprise, and it's also a disappointment for me and for you and for lots of people. But if Tony had said, all right, I'm getting rid of my offensive coordinator, Marcus, I want you to be the coordinator. I want you to be the play caller. I want you to put it all together for me. it doesn't change necessarily that things are still heading in an awful direction for Virginia football the next couple of years. But if you're Marcus, you got to say, man, chance to be a Power 5 coordinator, that would have been an interesting choice.
Yeah, I think if that would have been the decision, then Marcus would still be at UVA.
Yeah. Maybe reluctantly,
because he'd had a great season.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: the bar is so low on what you now would label next year as being a great season. We're talking about if the offense was somehow or another improved over last year, and maybe I'm sure that we would say a great season for UVA football next year. Chris is going to be 6-6.
Oh, I'd go as
maybe 5-7.
I'd go 4-8's a good season, and 5-7 might be borderline great. Yeah.
So Marcus would know that.
Yeah.
And think that alone, if he had to leave Virginia to eventually come back to Virginia, that could be his ticket instead of going somewhere as a wide receivers coach. He could get a gig as an offensive coordinator.
Yeah, and I say you look at what Virginia's got on defense. John Rosinski turned things around. I mean, what the problem last year wasn't the defense. The problem in 2021 was the defense. If there's any semblance of offense, they're not 3-7 on November 12th. They're 6-4, 7-3. So if the defense is close to where they were, in 2022 and 2023, if the offense can just improve marginally, there could be they could sneak some wins out of that. So, even though there's not a lot to work with, the offensive line's gone, the quarterback's gone, the receivers are gone, everybody's gone. If you could put it together and just not screw up, as much as the group did last year, he could be part of getting it turned around. And he's only 40 years old. He doesn't need to be a head coach right away. If he's an offensive coordinator and has success for 5 years, maybe he ends up being the head coach because of his success there. But no, there's no reason for him to hang around at UVA given the situation.
Yeah, smart move, disappointing move, but wish him nothing but the best moving forward. And I know he's going to do a great job. So we talked a little bit off the air about the only program that probably perceived this worse than we did was Tech, because
yes, we did.
Now you're going to have Marcus Hagens really working that Tidewater area, the whole state.
I got to preface that with yes, we've talked about this, but just to remind people here,
Tech is pissed at us, to be honest.
Tech is pissed because in this year's recruiting class, of the top 10 players in Virginia, 6 went to Penn State. Marcus Hagens recruits the 757 and Virginia in general pretty well. And so one of those 10 went to Virginia. None of them went to Virginia Tech. So we're upset that Marcus is leaving because he's going to go up there. He's the offensive recruiting coordinator for Penn State in addition to his wide receiver job. But they already own Virginia from the high school recruiting standpoint. They can't own it anymore. That doesn't hurt us. That hurts Virginia Tech because Virginia Tech made some inroads. They had 6 of the top 50 this year. We only had 1 of the top 50 this year. So that top 10 guy, but we only had 1 of the top 50. Brent Pry should be pissed at us right now.
Yeah, we cost him a home football game, and now this. I mean, it just keeps getting worse for the Hokies, and you got to think that there's a lot of things that's going to fall into place for Marcus there. I'm sure the NIL deals are a lot sweeter at Penn State. Obviously, they're not having any trouble getting athletes from 757 into Penn State. So there's no real academic barriers for Marcus Hagens. I'm just wondering why it took Marcus this long to leave.
Well, because this long, like after the season was over, or this long in terms of the years of his career?
Well, both.
I think in terms of years of his career, under Bronco Mendenhall, his trajectory was going pretty well. He had a good thing going. He was taking guys who weren't recruited necessarily as NFL prospects and turning them into NFL prospects. he stayed on 1 year too long, but who would have foreseen the train wreck that the offense became under Des Kitchings in 2022? I did not. I don't know that many people did. Tony Elliott couldn't have, because he wouldn't have hired the guy if that's the case. He kept him on for some reason. So, if I'm Marcus, he's only 40 years old. So he doesn't need to rush and go find other jobs. So in terms of this postseason, or this off season, I guess we should say, the rush was just, all right, let's look around and see what's out there. And it just turns out that a damn good job was open. Penn State, he's not leaving for, I had one person email me who wasn't negative about the column that I wrote, but still, why is he making this move? It's a lateral move. But lateral move in the sense that he's a wide receivers coach at Penn State, like he was a wide receivers coach at Virginia. Yes, he's the same position coach. This ain't a lateral move. It's a huge step up for him to go to a Power 5, perennial Big Ten and national championship contender. This is a huge step forward for him career-wise.
Yeah, it's not a lateral move in any capacity, as far as I'm concerned. I don't see how. So if we beat on a football team a lot. So if there is anything positive, I had a friend of ours point this out, is that there are a lot of former alumni that are really starting to get invested in the program. I'll mention a couple. Terry Kirby, Heath Miller,
okay,
getting involved now in not necessarily coaching, but just investing in the program.
Well, Terry Kirby's son is going to play at Virginia this year. His son's a tight end recruit, so.
And the question was, when does that start paying dividends, and when does Chris Slade start paying dividends? And I'm thinking, well, everybody's thinking Chris Slade, okay, he's got the connections to the 757. That's where he's from. He lived in Atlanta for a long time. But is it fair to think that Chris is just going to go back to Atlanta and start plucking away players that maybe slip between the cracks from Georgia and the SEC teams? Because there are a lot of programs in that part of the country that are miles ahead of UVA that aren't in the Southeast Conference.
I don't know that this is anybody's fault, so I'm not going to fault Chris Slade for not having any more success than anyone else on the staff at recruiting. I think that kids want to go somewhere where they think they have a chance to be developed and have a chance to win. And there's nothing about the 2022 season that's clearly spoke out to high school recruits and also transfer portal recruits to say, I want to go there because I'll get better and I'll win. And not counting, certainly nothing about November 13th. Up until November 12th, there was nothing that said to possible recruits of either high school or college age, let's go to Virginia, and that's going to be the place we need to go. The kind of kids that Virginia is getting off of both the transfer portal and out of the preps are kids whose best offer is Virginia. We're not beating other schools for top talents, and so we're competing with the MACs and the Sun Belts and FCS schools. And if your roster's made up of guys who were going to go to MAC and Sun Belt and FCS schools, guess what level of program you are? You're a MAC or FCS or Sun Belt level program. So
playing an ACC schedule,
and so that's not a knock at all on Chris Slade. I don't care if you're Jesus Christ right now recruiting for Virginia football. If the head coach is Tony Elliott and the offense is under Des Kitchings, you're not going to get any offensive talents worth anything to want to come and play football there. So
I'm not saying I wasn't knocking Chris because he's only been here a year.
No, you weren't knocking him. Me saying your question was, when does that pay dividends? I don't think it can pay dividends as long as the current head coach has the offensive coordinator in place and the current head coach's level of arrogance about here's how I'm going to do things. I don't think that Chris Slade, Terry Kirby, Heath Miller can fix this. I think it's where it is. They can try all they want. I don't think they can fix it.
No, you're probably right. As far as recruiting, if Chris does have success recruiting Atlanta, recruiting 757, I don't think it's beating out Georgia and SEC teams for 4 and 5 star players. I think it's just maybe beating out Georgia Tech for 3 and 4 star players.
We're
Schools like that.
We've got we're back to where we were in the George Welsh era, and probably we've always been here, but recruiting guys that diamonds in the rough and then making them better with our skill development at when they get there. The problem with that is Des Kitchings, the offensive coordinator, was handed a record-setting quarterback and turned him into a schlub. And so we don't have a track record. It's only 1 year, but we don't have a track record of turning guys into better players with this current coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball. And so, defensively, yeah, they were great. John Rosinski and his side were solid, but it's a 3-sided game, and on 2 sides, special teams and offense, we're not even FCS level right now.
Yeah, it's a tall mountain it's not Afton Mountain either. Think Mount Rainier.
There you go. Yeah,
exactly.
I
mean, really,
it's not a little bunny hill. It's
not the little hill going over 64 over Ivy. This is a major mountain, and we both love UVA football. I hope, hope that somehow the path for Tony to be successful is clearly he's going to have to take this quarterback from Monmouth,
yeah,
and turn him into a serviceable ACC quarterback. Some of the offensive line portal players are going to have to. The offensive line is going to have to play much better than the offensive line, the patchwork offensive line we did last year. If he proves that he can develop players, then maybe that's his path. But there's no evidence that he's going to be able to do that.
And if his record is what we project it might be, he might not have time to develop players, because if with the pressure of that $80 million football ops center opening in 2024, the people who donated the money to make that possible are not going to want to have a 2-10 football team in there every year. And so if he's got 2 years, he's 3-7 this year, if he has another year like that next year, and then 2024 plays out that way, maybe he makes it into 2024. If he has another 2 or 3 or 4 win season in 2024, he doesn't make it out of 2024. And so, fair or not, the pressure that comes with being the guy that gets to play in the new football practice palace is the same pressure that Dave Lato was under when Dave Lato took over the basketball program, was handed the keys to JPJ, and lost to Liberty at home at the start of his 4th year. And played in CBI the year before that.
Played games on Wednesday afternoon at 2:00 in the CBI.
Yeah, if you're given all the resources that Tony Elliott's being given, and you can't win games, you don't earn the right to develop players 4th and 5th year.
Right, and I think having some of these alumni that were successful, that know what it takes. I mean, you're talking Chris Slade, Terry Kirby, Heath Miller, Charlie McDaniel. These guys know that you can have strong academics and be a representative football team. Maybe you don't go to the college football playoffs, but what realistic UVA fan is expecting that?
Right.
We're talking about teams that can consistently win 7, 8, 9 games a year, can consistently beat Virginia Tech. That's all we're asking for. And I think this new blood that's coming back into the program, that believes in the program, is what is going to make this program successful maybe 3 to 4 years from now.
I think getting UVA people in charge of UVA athletics will be part of that. And that's me digging at Carla Williams, but
that's what it's going to take.
I think it's going to take someone that bleeds orange and blue. Isn't just, Carla's here. Maybe I'm casting aspersions, but I don't know that she takes it as personally as we do. And I say we being, I'm an alum. You might as well be an alum. The football guys who broke bones on that football field are guys who invested in this. We take it personally. This isn't an experiment for us. This is not just an exercise and let's go play football games on Saturday in front of 30,000 people. This is something that makes or breaks our weekend. It makes and breaks our week. And if the players out there are practicing and doing everything that they can do, they deserve better than what they're getting. And
well,
so,
Chris, there's a lot of people that have a livelihood around UVA football.
well, that's right. That's right.
I mean,
Business wise, right?
This is our livelihood to some extent.
Well, but think about the businesses in Charlottesville that used to have 60,000 people used to be in towns on Fridays and Saturdays, and now there's 30,000 people in town.
And I know some of those business owners that are lamenting the fact that they don't have a full house on Friday nights at their restaurants, at their 5-star restaurants, not to mention names, great steakhouses, not to mention names, that we don't have the business here anymore because we don't have, when you take a stadium that seats 60 and you have it, you don't have that much, you have that fewer amount of people that can have that disposable income, that can come into town early, that can spend money in great restaurants, that can stay in really nice hotels. And so there's a lot of people affected by the success of UVA football. And to hear about some of the alumni that are now coming back in, really starting to invest in their time in the program, that to me is very encouraging.
It's encouraging. It's not going to have I don't think it's going to have an impact in the immediate term, but yes, if it moves us in the direction where we need to be in 3, 4, 5 years, it's very positive. So I will grant you that. And I hope I'll conclude this way, because I think we're bumping up. We probably bumped past our time. I will say that I hope every Saturday when I go to a game that I'm wrong, that I sit there, whether I'm in the stadium or some of the times I'm not in the stadium, my heart is pounding hard because I'm as nervous as a fan as anybody out there listening into us, watching us right now. I want the good guys to win as much as or more than you do. I don't want to be right about this. So I don't glee in any of this. And so, I've seen some comments on Facebook, I'm all negative and everything else. No, my God, I'm just being honest that I don't like where things are going and it's not going to get better, but I hope I'm wrong. I would love Tony Bennett to be successful, because if he's not successful, we got to hire somebody else in 3 or 4 years, and it's going to take that guy 3 or 4 years to get as good. And I'm getting older. I don't want to spend the next 10 years of my life watching really, really bad football.
Yeah. And this is a topic for another podcast down the road, but Carla Williams probably not going to be the person charged with hiring a new football coach.
If that ends up being the case, right?
If that ends up being the case. So I think it's obvious. I've never wanted to be wrong about something more than this.
That's right. That's right. I mean, we're on the same boat there. We're being detached journalists telling you what we see, but then there's the part of us that doesn't like what we see. It doesn't want it to be true.
But we want to be honest.
But we have to be honest. That's right. That's right. We're not doing our job if we're not honest. And unfortunately, not too many people in the Virginia media are either honest or they just can't see it. But whatever the case may be, we are, and we hope we're wrong. So, well, Scott, this was
I've been wrong before, so it's not going to be something out of the blue if I am wrong.
No skin off your nose, right? If it turns out you're wrong. I hope I get emails from people in 3 or 4 years, and because Tony Elliott's successful and they tell me, Chris, you were wrong about him, I will say, hey, great, congratulations. I'm glad I was wrong. So because my Saturdays and my falls are a lot better if I'm not right about this. As far as that goes. Well, Scott, fun discussion, and I hope that our listeners out there got great info out of it. Go to AugustaFreePress.com if you want more from us about UVA sports. Also, Scott's got a little cottage industry going with Baltimore Orioles, Baltimore Ravens talk. So go to AugustaFreePress.com for that. If you got anything from me that you want me to address down the road, email me at Chris@AugustaFreePress.com.